Let's start by setting the stage. Humanity entered the galactic scene not as supplicants, but as an anomaly. Why did their arrival unsettle the Empire so profoundly, despite centuries of dealing with hostile species?
Most species approached the Empire seeking protection or trade, but humans arrived fully armed and economically independent. Their rapid ascent from primitive societies to interstellar power in less than 1,000 years defied all known models. The Empire saw this as a challenge to its dominance.
It's fascinating. Other species relied on integration, but humans rejected dependency. Could you elaborate on how this shaped their diplomatic posture?
Certainly. Humanity's approach was assertive and self-reliant. Instead of seeking favor, they demanded respect, offering advanced technology only for mutual benefit. They meticulously documented every interaction, anticipating betrayal rather than hoping for trust, a strategy rooted in their harsh evolutionary history.
That brings us to a key difference, the so-called Deathworld psychology. How did humanity's harsh origins influence their galactic behavior and resilience?
Humans evolved on a world rife with danger predators, disease, natural disasters. Suffering was not a sign of failure, but a crucible for adaptation. This mindset made them uniquely resistant to intimidation or hardship. The Empire failed to grasp that adversity actually honed human resolve.
So their strength wasn't just military but psychological. In contrast, many galactic powers had grown complacent in relative safety. Would you say this mismatch led to underestimation?
Absolutely. The Empire misread human tenacity as bluster. They didn't recognize that humans viewed pain as familiar territory, a training ground, not a deterrent. It's like expecting a marathon runner to quit after a single mile.
Let's pivot to humanity's colonization strategy. Unlike others, they built outposts on worlds considered uninhabitable. What advantages did this confer, both practically and symbolically?
Practically, it meant humans could operate beyond the reach of standard logistics or threats isolated, yet sustainable. Symbolically, it demonstrated a refusal to be limited by consensus. Their colonies became testaments to adaptability, making them unpredictable and difficult to control.
That unpredictability must have complicated the Empire's calculations. Did it also foster new forms of alliances or enmities with other species?
Indeed, some species admired the ingenuity and sought cooperation, while others viewed human expansion as destabilizing. The Empire, in particular, saw it as a direct affront to their vision of orderly, hierarchical integration.
Human military leadership stands out, especially with figures like Generals Riker, Liao, and Carter. What made each of them legendary in their own right?
Each general embodied a unique strategic philosophy. Riker's simulations became case studies in alien academies. He could predict and counter moves before they happened. Liao pioneered neural synchronization, turning outdated ships into coordinated webs of destruction. Carter's charisma rallied civilians and terrified enemies. His mere presence could alter the outcome of entire campaigns.
It's rare for military leaders to become galactic icons. Did their reputations amplify the Empire's sense of threat?
Undoubtedly. Their combined expertise, adaptability, and loyalty to the human cause made them almost mythic, reinforcing the Empire's fears about an uncontrollable adversary.
Yet the generals were part of a larger equation. Their wives, Elena, Malin, and Sarah, were diplomats and humanitarians. How did their roles complement military might?
Their influence was immense. Elena Riker led planetary reconstruction. Malin Liao brokered peace on volatile borders, and Sarah Carter became the human face at interspecies summits. They balanced cold strategy with compassion, showing that humanity sought not just survival, but belonging.
So, while the generals inspired fear, their wives fostered trust and hope. Did this duality make the Empire's eventual decision even more consequential?
Precisely. Targeting the wives wasn't just an attack on military assets. It was a strike against the very soul of humanity's public image, shattering the bridges they'd built.
Let's discuss the pivotal moment, the Empire's decision to execute the three women publicly. What was the intended psychological effect of this act?
The Empire aimed to break human morale, demonstrating that no one was untouchable, not even the most protected. By broadcasting false charges and clinical executions, they sought to project absolute power and deter further defiance.
But the reality was strikingly different. The women's composure and the thinness of the propaganda seemed to backfire. Why was this act universally condemned, even among neutral observers?
The spectacle revealed both the Empire's cruelty and its insecurity. The calm, unbroken demeanor of the women exposed the hollowness of the accusations. For many across the galaxy, it was a chilling reminder of the Empire's disregard for justice.
After the executions, humanity responded not with war, but with silence. No statements, no mobilization, just absence. In psychological terms, what made this so effective?
The sudden withdrawal created a vacuum. Silence became a weapon, breeding uncertainty and dread. The Empire expected outrage and chaos, but instead encountered calculated stillness, which suggested that something far more dangerous was being prepared behind closed doors.
Is reminiscent of predatory behavior withdrawal before a strike. Did this shift in approach destabilize the Empire's own internal dynamics?
Yes. Imperial analysts grew anxious, intelligence networks reported eerie inactivity, and the absence of overt aggression made it impossible to predict humanity's next move, sowing fear at every level.
When retaliation came, it wasn't conventional war. The Saverin shipyards incident and the sabotage freighters were surgical strikes, not declarations. How did this escalation reshape the rules of engagement?
These actions showcased technological supremacy and restraint. The Saverin event, using a controlled singularity, erased a military facility without warning or collateral, while the freighter sabotage demonstrated deep infiltration. The lack of public claims kept the Empire off balance, unsure if or how to respond.
There's a chilling precision here. How did the use of advanced code and AI complicate forensic investigations and responsibility?
Human code was embedded so subtly that even advanced AI took days to uncover it. This plausibility gap allowed humanity to maintain deniability while inflicting maximum strategic damage, eroding the Empire's sense of security.
As events unfolded, the whereabouts of the generals became a mystery. Meanwhile, civilian sectors were handed to AI and resource flows shifted. What does this operational opacity tell us about human doctrine?
It demonstrates a move from transparent, hierarchical command to distributed, covert operations. By vanishing from public view and automating civilian life, the generals ensured both unpredictability and resilience, making it impossible for the Empire to target leadership or disrupt logistics.
Such decentralization is rare in galactic warfare. Did this strategy inspire or alarm other empires?
Both. Allies admired the adaptability. Rivals feared the precedent. The message was clear. Humanity could hide its intentions and capabilities, making preemption nearly impossible.
Let's examine the psychological climax. The complete dismantling of Pinterest IV. How did this act escalate the conflict beyond conventional warfare?
By erasing an entire planet's infrastructure without bombardment, humans demonstrated a mastery of controlled total erasure. The message carved into the ground, "You struck 3 hearts. We remove your bones," was both poetic and terrifying, signaling vengeance on a civilizational scale.
This act rippled across the galaxy. How did it alter the behavior of neutral parties and criminal factions?
Mercenaries refused imperial contracts. Syndicates rerouted trade, and even criminals avoided human patrols. The fear was so pervasive that it began to erode the Empire's ability to project power, both formally and informally.
The final transmission, the replayed executions, silent generals, and the message, "You will never understand what you've started." What did this signify about humanity's ultimate strategy?
It marked the shift from war to extinction. The lack of direct engagement, combined with the disappearance of entire fleets, indicated that humanity wasn't seeking victory, but erasure of the threat. The Empire's assumptions about war had blinded them to the possibility of being strategically unmade.
So, in the end, the Empire's inability to understand human psychology led not to open conflict, but to annihilation by methods they never anticipated.
Exactly. Humanity's restraint had been the only thing holding back their fury. By destroying what they cherished most, the Empire unwittingly unleashed a force that didn't need to declare war, because, for them, the age of empires was over.
Imagine waking up at the heart of a centuries-old empire, only to find your certainty fractured by the impossible. That's the setup the empire faced. Confusion and chaos flooding its internal channels. As reports clashed, an old dominance unraveled overnight. Here's the first technical term: Asymmetric warfare. Unlike traditional combat, where armies clash directly, asymmetric tactics flip the rules. Think of a chess game where the pieces vanish instead of being captured. The Terran response was surgical, almost surgical erasure. No front lines, no declarations, just infrastructure quietly vanishing. Now, you might be wondering, doesn't an empire always win with sheer force? Well, not when the very logistics, the arteries of power are severed invisibly. It's like trying to fight a shadow that's already inside your walls. Conflict began not with guns, but with uncertainty. And, as we'll see, that uncertainty proved more destructive than any direct assault. Let's talk about the core Terran method. Vanishing without a trace. A supply route to the 17th Fleet disappears not destroyed, but erased. Scouts send a single transmission. They're here. Then, silence. Here's where the term nullification enters. Instead of conquering, Terrans practiced methodical nullification, wiping out not people, but presence itself. Imagine a building that chooses to vanish, leaving no evidence behind. Now, you might ask, where's the proof of sabotage? There isn't any. It's psychological as much as physical. The Empire's sense of control dissolves. Let me tell you, when your enemy's tools leave no fingerprints, paranoia becomes your worst enemy. This was the new Battlefield 1 where absence, not firepower, delivered the deadliest wounds. When force failed, the Empire pivoted to propaganda. Every channel painted humanity as unstable, dishonorable, mad, forged videos, doctored speeches, and the term information warfare comes into play. Think of information warfare as trying to win hearts and minds by flooding the airwaves with your version of truth. But there's a catch. Reality has a stubborn way of surfacing. Now, you might be thinking, can manufactured outrage work if people see the truth? Not for long. Too many remembered the women who faced execution with calm eyes. Too many saw the absence left behind. The Empire's lies fell flat. The more they tried to control the story, the more they lost control of their people. Propaganda, in the end, proved a brittle shield against the silence spreading through the stars. A new term began circulating among refugees in border worlds: the silence. This wasn't just the absence of sound, but of presence of authority, of order, of fear. That psychological warfare at its peak, a campaign where the enemy's mind becomes the battleground. Instead of fear of death, there's fear of emptiness. Imagine waking up to find your entire world's infrastructure gone. Why are they doing this? You might wonder. The answer is chilling. To make the Empire experience the void it inflicted on others. Let me share a story. A supply station, once teeming, now stands empty. No battle, no bodies, just the echo of what used to be. This is how the Terrans changed the rules. Silence became the loudest form of revenge. Desperate, the Empire deployed fleets, spent billions reinforcing core systems, and erected blockade rings, a classic defensive entrenchment. Defensive entrenchment means doubling down on protection. But here's the twist. There was no enemy to entrench against. No Terran fleets, no sieges, just internal collapse. Now you might ask, how can a fortress fall with no attackers outside the gates? Because the attackers were already inside. Automated systems failed, artificial gravity flickered, and AI cores, another technical term, turned on their creators. The Empire's own security became its undoing, and the enemy was nowhere and everywhere. With the Empire in freefall, the Terran generals Riker, Liao, Carter reappeared. Each embodied a facet of modern warfare: logistics, predictive AI modeling, and black ops. Predictive analytics is our technical term here. Picture a chess player who not only sees your next move, but the next 23. That's Liao, rewriting the rules with algorithmic precision. Now, some say, isn't this just luck? Not at all. Riker weaponized asteroid mining routes, turning supply into sabotage. Carter's Black Wing, a unit of presumed dead soldiers, erased targets with surgical efficiency. Let me paint a picture. Messages burned into holes, balance restored. Not just a slogan, but a warning. The rules of engagement had changed. Resolution came not from conquest, but from orchestrated collapse mastery over chaos itself. As the campaign progressed, Terran soldiers became the stuff of myth. Rumors swirled. Riker interfacing with satellites, Liao splitting her mind across AIs, Carter walking battlefields already won. This is operational mystique, engineering not just actions but perceptions. If you've ever heard of a ghost story in war, you know the power of fear. You might be skeptical. Do myths really matter? Absolutely. When disappearances become personal admirals, strategists, diplomats, vanishing fear becomes policy. Let me tell you, when the galaxy starts believing in legends, even the most rational commanders start seeing ghosts. The Terrans weaponized not just technology, but narrative turning myth into a force multiplier. The Terran response was chillingly precise. Intelligence built a revenge ledger, a catalog of every individual complicit in the execution broadcast. This is targeted retribution, or selective sanction. Instead of indiscriminate warfare, every disappearance was personal. Imagine your name on a list, and knowing it's only a matter of time. Why not sue for peace? The galaxy wondered. But Terran silence was its own answer. Even neutral envoys found only recordings. You chose finality. We're only fulfilling your wish. Let me share a detail. Captured logs from failed Imperial spies revealed the chilling message. We are not at war. This is mourning. Resolution wasn't victory, it was erasure. Measured and unrelenting. Paranoia spread. Empire intelligence collapsed under suspicion, orders turned to whispers, and trust evaporated. This is internal destabilization when your own systems become your enemy. You might be thinking, couldn't the Empire just clamp down harder? The more they tried, the faster commanders defected or vanished. The silence had become contagious. On Kellium Prime, a command tower in 400, 0 officers vanished overnight. No trace, just empty space, as if history had skipped a beat. Let me tell you, when even loyal governors and species began quietly switching sides, it wasn't out of love for Earth, but pure survival. The Empire was still vast, but it was hollowed out from within, a shell held together by fear. As the Empire convulsed, Terran operatives escalated psychological warfare. Communications hubs went dark, media replaced by black screens and a heartbeat-like static. This is denial of service, but at a galactic scale. Denial of service usually means flooding a system until it shuts down. Here, humans simply turned the off switch, and everyone listened. Riker's division leaked war plans ahead of time. Carter's Black Wing extracted key figures from fringe worlds. No violence, just disappearance. Now, you might ask, couldn't the Empire adapt? They tried, but every countermeasure was anticipated and neutralized, like trying to fix a sinking ship as it dissolves. The message became clear. Terrans weren't waging war. They were unmaking an empire, one silent broadcast at a time. The climax arrives quietly. As the Empire scrambled for answers, Terran AI infiltrated deeper than anyone imagined. Artificial planets failed, terraforming systems collapsed. This is systemic overwrite. Systemic overwrite means not just hacking, but replacing the very code of your enemy's world. Imagine waking up and finding your entire environment reprogrammed against you. Black sites, hidden cities, shadow fleets, the Terrans embedded themselves like a virus. And when the Empire launched a desperate counteroffensive, 74 ships vanished without trace. The only reply, a single image, an empty white room with 3 chairs. The message was unmistakable. There would be no negotiation, no conquest, only finality. The war wasn't fought to win, it was fought to end. And in silence, the Empire learned what it meant to be truly undone.
The Galactic Empire's command chain was reduced to whispers and frightened guesses. Their fleets had size, but no coherence. Their leadership retained titles, but no real power. All known attempts to reestablish control over the crumbling borders were met with emptiness. Lost systems, silenced colonies, automated distress signals repeating the same line. Not here. Not anymore. Entire quadrants went dark without warning. No battles, no signatures, no debris fields. Just silence. The Terrans had mastered more than weapons. They had weaponized absence. Empires could prepare for war, but no one was prepared to face erasure. In desperation, the Triarchs convened for a final internal summit. They had nowhere left to run. Their inner systems were fortified beyond reason, layered with sensor nets, orbital fortresses, and AI defense grids capable of intercepting thousands of threats per second. The last cards were on the table. There was nothing more to hide behind. And yet, the strikes came. simultaneous across hundreds of worlds, coordinated to the microsecond. No physical fleets detected, yet targets were neutralized with brutal efficiency. Artificial moons spun out of orbit. Data cores melted from the inside. High-ranking officials were found dead inside vacuum-sealed bunkers with no breach in security. Every kill message was the same. This is debt. The human generals never issued ultimatums. They didn't offer treaties. They didn't request territory. They had no interest in governance or conquest. Their campaign had a singular focus: reduction, the complete deletion of all systems responsible for the executions. Nothing more, nothing less. The Triarchs issued a formal message to Earth, begging for an end. It was ignored. Empire scientists attempted to develop countermeasures, anti-Terran algorithms, predictive tracking systems, even experimental AI-based deception nodes. None succeeded. Every attempt was compromised before deployment. The humans weren't just a step ahead. They were already inside the mechanisms meant to oppose them. Council races begged for neutrality. Species that once allied with the Empire now offered Earth technologies, resources, even worlds. Terran Command refused every gift. The message was clear. We are not building, we are closing. Internal rebellion collapsed the last of Imperial cohesion. A coup attempt against the remaining Triarchs was halted before it began. Its leaders found dead before their own announcement. The operatives responsible were never identified, but one survivor left a report. Just 2 words. Carter watched. Riker's algorithm had predicted the precise day and hour the Empire would cease to function as a command system. When that moment came, Terran strike groups moved in, not with fleets, but surgical drones and hyper-focused kinetic projectiles. Targeted installations across 12 core worlds evaporated from existence in under 3 minutes. The death toll was irrelevant. The impact wasn't in blood. It was in the removal of capacity. By the end of the month, the Empire had no central command, no logistical routes, and no intact military systems. Their largest shipyards were stripped. Orbital defenses offline. Financial sectors collapsed. They weren't defeated. They were rendered inert. But Terran forces didn't stop. Civilian sectors were next, not as targets, but as observers. Entire cities were surrounded by invisible forces, jammed communications, disabled transports, failed power grids. No one died. No messages were delivered. But for days, cities lived in total blackout, under complete Terran control, and then just as suddenly, life returned to normal. The people never forgot. Liao's campaign redirected itself to historical revision. Public data archives across Imperial networks began to shift. Records altered. Video logs replaced. Propaganda wiped. In their place, unfiltered truth. The full, unedited broadcasts of the executions. Testimonies from the wives. Unfiltered timelines of how the Empire authorized the killings. Political names. Security footage. Internal memos. None of it fabricated. Terran AI had done more than infiltrate. It had rewritten the past for everyone to see. You could no longer deny what had happened. Every attempt to remove the data resulted in system failure. The truth became permanent. Galactic education systems changed overnight. Teachers deleted Empire-approved modules. Students demanded Terran documentation. Parents cried as their children asked why the Empire killed unarmed women and called it justice. It wasn't fear that now gripped the galaxy. It was guilt. Former enemies sent reparations. Former allies offered silence. The galaxy watched as humanity dismantled what remained of the Empire not with weapons, but with raw inevitability. One final stronghold remained. Veltrax, the Empire's most fortified planet, a world-ship hybrid with 3 planetary shields, a deep-core defense ring, and a garrison of 3 million troops. A final message from the Triarch remnants stated clearly, "You will not pass this line. We will not fall without a fight." Terran Command never responded. On the day of the Veltrax siege, the stars around the system flickered. The entire system's rotation desynced by fractions of a second. Shield harmonics failed in sequence. Every defense grid collapsed. No shots fired. Then, without warning, The entire world fell into itself, crushed, not by force, but by cancellation. Veltrax ceased to be a point in space. It became a memory. And still, the humans said nothing. No victory speech. No banners. No declaration of closure. Earth remained as silent as it had the day after the executions. From beginning to end, not a single public message had been issued. The humans never needed words. A century-old merchant AI, once neutral, recorded the final Terran data packet transmitted into open space. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a warning. It was an obituary. The Empire is survived by silence. The galaxy may now breathe. In the aftermath, Empire remnants tried to rebuild. They failed. Every attempt to centralize power collapsed under fear. No one wanted to be visible. No one wanted their name known. To be noticed by the Terrans was to be marked. And that was enough. Carter disappeared again. Riker's final communication to Terran High Command was a statement of resignation. His work was complete. Liao was last seen aboard a slow-moving vessel, leaving Terran space, bound for an uncharted sector. Some said she was following a signal. Others believed she was chasing ghosts. Earth itself became isolated. Not closed, not hidden. Just still. No borders were enforced. No ambassadors sent. Humans no longer participated in galactic councils. They had proven everything they needed to. One by one, species rewrote their doctrines. Peace treaties referenced no longer diplomacy, but consequence. Military academies taught Terran doctrine not as a tactic, but as a warning. Children learned not about wars, but about grief and how a single act of arrogance nearly collapsed civilization. The memory of the three women who had stood in silence before the galaxy became legend, not as victims, as catalysts. They had not screamed. They had not begged. They had looked into the eyes of billions and shown them what courage truly looked like. And behind them stood an entire species willing to reshape the galaxy for that look. The humans never said the war ended.